Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are thrilled to have you join us as we explore how real customers are transforming their operations using Scoop. Our focus today is on efficiency, quality control, and process optimization, all of which are critical elements for businesses in any market or business climate. So as we will see today, this focus is what helped NuSolas scale their operations by 3 times in a short span of time as they set their sights on cutting waste and inefficiencies from their processes. Joining us today is Kieron Bolt from NuSolas Energy, who's played a key role in optimizing their operational processes. He'll walk us through their journey from the challenges they faced to the game-changing solutions they've implemented. So Kieron, welcome.
Thank you, Remy. Thanks very much.
Amazing. So we've got a fantastic 2-part webinar today. We're going to start with a discussion with Kieron to learn more about NuSolas, their place in the market, and his role supporting their operations. We're going to touch on some hurdles they've faced and the solutions that they've found, not just to overcome them, but to push the business into its next phase of growth. When we get to the second part, this is where the fun happens. We're going to be diving into details of their actual Scoop workspace. So you're going to get a firsthand look at their workflows and the strategies they're using to drive these impressive results. By the end of today's session, we hope you'll walk away with fresh strategies, valuable best practices, and new insights on how you can leverage technology to elevate your operations. So with that, welcome everyone. My name is Remington. I'm the Director of Customer Experience here at Scoop. And I'm especially excited about today because I've had the privilege of working closely with Kieron and NuSolas throughout their whole journey at Scoop. The growth has been remarkable, all while maintaining top-notch quality. So when I stand back, their success really comes down to accountability, solid processes, and smart automations. It's been amazing to see how they've used Scoop to streamline operations and scale efficiently. Before we jump in with the interview with Kieron, I'm going to take a few minutes just to give you a quick overview of who we are at Scoop, what we do, and the type of customers that we support. I know many of you are familiar with us already, but for anyone joining for the first time, this is going to help set the stage. At Scoop, our core focus is providing a central operations hub, or COH, for renewable energy companies. This hub streamlines your internal processes. It boosts collaborations with partners and subcontractors to reduce friction and ensure a smooth flow of information across the board. It also means that unlike the captive all-in-one solutions, you get a modular tech stack that you can easily plug and play new game-changing technology that's showing up on the market. By bridging the divide between the field and the office teams, the Central Operations Hub ensures everyone has the information they need right when they need it. So it connects the best-in-class tools that our customers already use. It keeps the data up to date and easily accessible. And the result is there's less confusion, there's fewer bottlenecks, and there's a lot less tension between teams. The COH approach has been extremely well received. Just to give you an idea of our reach, Scoop is currently used on over 250,000 job sites across 13 different countries. Every month, customers execute thousands of installations and service visits through Scoop. And this number keeps growing as our customers are scaling their operations. These customers range from small teams, from 5 to 10 people, all the way up to some large utility scale companies with hundreds of technicians in the field daily. When we first start the conversation with a potential customer, we often see the same pattern: disjointed connections between teams and tools. And this is represented by the large number of squiggly red lines you see on this slide. These lines show the gaps between your various teams, the field and the office, and the different tools each person is using to manage their job. And the result? Disconnected systems that create errors, missed handoffs, and incomplete data, which ultimately slows down projects and drives up costs. Another common issue is an over-reliance on a few key individuals who hold all of the project details in their heads. As workloads increase, these people quickly become bottlenecks and companies hit growth ceilings. Our central operations hub changes the game by bringing everything, teams, tools, and processes into one orchestrated system. It's not just a big bucket of data that get passed from one team to the next, where people have to sort through hundreds of data points and files to find what they need. It's a smart, role-based platform that ensures everyone sees exactly what they need to get their job done. So, for example, a field tech only sees the information relevant to their task, while a designer has access to all the project specs they need to move forward. And the best part, we automate these transitions between teams and tasks, notifying the right people at the right time and tracking the project as it moves through. This eliminates your bottlenecks. It keeps everyone accountable, and it helps teams work as a cohesive unit, minimizing errors and boosting efficiencies. All right. With the high-level context out of the way, let's get into the details and see how this works in practice. So, just to get us orientated with our session together, we are going to proceed from here. In the fireplace chat portion, Kieron and I are going to be having a conversation about NuSolas and then doing a deeper dive into the specific challenges they were having. After this portion, and armed with the context, we're going to be getting into the live demo of NuSolas Workspace to show you a few key examples of how they're addressing these challenges. So, Kieron, let's start with NuSolas. Can you give us a quick snapshot of the company? Who are your customers and how you serve them?
Sure, Remy. Yeah. So, hello everybody. So we are NuSolas. We are based in Shannon, County Clare in Ireland. The company's been in existence for about 5 years now, and our customers are primarily the private residential market as well as the agricultural side, and we are also branching now more so into the commercial side as well.
Okay, makes a ton of sense. What geographies are you focused on? Is it only County Clare or are you spread across all of Ireland?
We can service anywhere in Ireland. Ireland is quite the competition is immense in Ireland at the moment, and it is growing. We primarily operate along, say, the west side of Ireland. That's where we are located, but we do have installs all across the country, indeed.
Okay, love it. I'm from the west coast of Canada, so anytime I hear West Coast, I'm happy. I love it. Okay, solar projects rely heavily on strong partnerships. We all know this. So, who are some of the key collaborators you have to work with? You know, maybe on the supply side, the installation side, or financing?
So I suppose the in terms of the collaboration, we do a lot of in-house work ourselves. The amount of work that is there is mostly done in-house. The collaboration does come into place more the practical installation side of things, where we have our own teams in place, roofers, electricians, etc. However, we do employ some subcontractors as well, where we do need to we give them access to Scoop as well, and they can also add their details to that. And also in the post installation side, we have we do have input with some external contractors who deal with energy assessments, who also have to give us information, which all ties into the final solution for the customer as well.
Okay, makes sense. So would it be fair to say you kind of are able to run the whole project top to tail yourselves, but you do bring in partners as necessary as you're growing to help you?
Exactly, as necessary. Thankfully, again, we can do a lot in-house. However, with Scoop, it does allow us to branch out. If we do need to employ any external help, we can do that, and Scoop allows for that expansion as well.
Okay, I love it. Now let's talk about you, Kieran. What is your role at NuSolas and what does a typical day look like?
So my role here is administrator, but that covers a lot of, I suppose, a very vague term. From everything from customer service to dealing with all the front end Scoop side of things, and also as well as, I suppose, the go-to troubleshooter for anything and anything to do with Scoop. We get a lot of feedback from our teams on the ground, our teams here in our offices. um, Scoop needs to do this, Kieran, fix it. And that's more or less where my time lies here.
Okay. Was that part of your mandate when you came into the role, or did you just kind of fall into it of, you ended up with the scoop hat?
Well, the my background, I've an IT background myself. When I came on board with NuSolas, they did have Scoop employed at the time. But I suppose it just took somebody with the energy just to really implement it in a way where it was of practical use, and to get away from the inefficiencies of spreadsheets and Google Drive and having the totally a fractured process where you could have 100 different things and consolidate it into one management system. So I suppose when I first came in, it was introduced to me and I just took it on, and here we are.
Yeah, makes
two years,
sense.
2 years later, 2 years later.
Yeah. Um, okay, love it. Thank you. Before we get into Scoop, how Scoop is helping you today, maybe let's take a little bit of a step back. I'd love to hear, I know you came on board when Scoop was already there, but you were part of a big change in the way it was used. And I'm sure you heard of life before Scoop as well. So can you tell us a bit of what operations looked like before New Solus brought on board Scoop? What tools and
Sure,
systems were they relying on to keep projects on track?
sure. I suppose from a lot of paper, a lot of physical paper was employed, physical checklists, paper checklists. Then there was, Google Sheets, spreadsheets, different spreadsheets that will cover different parts of the process. They weren't talking to each other. Um, the I suppose, and Google Drive as well. There was a lot of toing and froing from has and you don't know who's done what. So there was a lot of leaning back in your chair. Have you done this? Have you done that? I think so. A lot of thinking, a lot of maybes, not a lot of definites. And it was a case where things were being missed. Where projects were getting to a stage where they shouldn't have got to because things were missed, but there was nothing to stop that. So I suppose uh, when I first came on board, it was a lot of that, you know, physical paperwork. As what you were showing there now, you've got
Yeah.
all these different things that are there, and none of them talk to each other, and that's no good. It's very inefficient, and the quality for the customer is just degraded immensely. So that had to be
Yeah.
fixed.
I wanted to pull it up because as you're describing it, I was like, hey, I feel like we touched on this, which is, yeah, paper being handed from team to team, Google
Yes.
Drive where documents and photos are being added, but you have to go manually check to see, has that been dropped in there yet? Some Google Sheets to track, different areas of the project, and none of this stuff is talking or sharing or pushing the next area along. Um, so yeah, I wanted to pull this back up as you were talking, maybe to give our customers a bit of that visual diagram of maybe what it looked like.
Yeah, like you've got even to the point of using spreadsheets for scheduling.
Hmm.
Trying to schedule using a spreadsheet is just it's impractical. And even after that, even if everything wasn't, if everything was done right, the installation side, we have to document a lot of details for our post-installation works. And then you're worrying about the guys on the ground, the roofing teams, the electricians, properly documenting. Where are they documenting that? Where are they sending photos? Where are they leaving their reports? And if you can't find them, you're having to chase them, and that is more valuable time taken away from growing the business. So
Yeah.
and Scoop has certainly fixed that for us.
Okay. I love to hear it. Maybe as a follow-up, thinking about these challenges we've just talked about, these disjointed systems, these delays, manually chasing down information, following up. How did that, affect individual employees, their, job satisfaction, their ability to do their job, being frustrated with these tools?
Sure, I suppose when one thing that we'd always get a lot of kickback from was, you start chasing um, some of the lads on the ground, the roofers, the guys who are there doing the physical installations. I need you to send me this. I've already sent it, and oh, can you send it to me again? And you get a lot of this huffing and puffing. So, well, I have to send it now again. I have to go back through photos that might be stored on a mobile device. Do you know, where's this report? Where's that report? You do get a lot of kickback from that side. And then from even some of the other administrative team here, um, why wasn't something done? And you get a lot of I don't knows. And there's a lot of, finger pointing and well, you should have done that. And there was no, it was everybody's responsibility and nobody's
Got it.
responsibility at the same time. Whereas now with Scoop, you can assign people and it's very, very clear where the responsibilities lie. And it's very, very easy to reassign things. And there's no interpretation of, whose responsibility is it. So
Yeah.
that was probably the biggest thing where uh, it has got better,
Yeah.
thankfully.
Okay. So, as you're kind of reminiscing about this state, particularly interested, on the Google Drive side, the like, hey, we got to collect data, we have to grab all these documents in order to, maybe even start an installation. We have to, put together certain requirements. Can you give an example of, how this setup impacted project timelines?
Yes. So in theory, a project should flow quite nicely. The only times where we'd be delayed, ideally, is where we need something from the customer, and that is their prerogative if they want to take their time to reply to us. Whereas before, it might have been a case where we've got a Google Drive folder per customer, um, and all the documents and all the preparation work for their installation should be in their folder. Um, Whereas it would be if we were needing something from another member of our team or from the customer and it hasn't come in via an email or if they haven't sent it in via post or whatever way they want to communicate to us, and if it's not put into that Google Drive folder, then it delays things. And then we're
Hmm.
having to wait and wait when it might have come in and somebody might not have acted on it because they think somebody else will do it because again responsibilities are being mixed up. um, and then you're having to revisit these folders on Google Drive once a week, once every 14 days, and you're saying, "Oh, now the information is now in that folder. Oh, now I can move on with the project." But when did that information arrive in that folder? That could have been 10 days ago when we could have been
Mm,
scheduling, we could have been getting that installation done. Excuse me, we could have been getting the post installation work done. And at least now, we there's no more checking folders manually. We know where the project status lies with Scoop. We know where it is.
yeah. Oh, so it's kind of, it was always sitting on, the administrator and the project manager side to, you know, remember to go in, check these folders. Do I
Yep.
have everything I need? Maybe the customer's emailed into a member of the team what's needed. It just, if it's not in
Yes.
there, is that sitting on you to go chase it? Is it sitting on who received it? Yeah. So kind of that like just that big bucket approach of, hey, put everything in
Yeah.
here, trust that everything's put in here in a timely
Yes.
manner, and then I have to go check the big bucket to make sure it has everything necessary to move forward.
Sure.
Just delaying things by, as you kind of said, like, a week, 10
The
days at a time, depending on how frequently you can
Absolutely.
check it.
And
Yeah.
to add to that is some of those things that are in that bucket, as you put it, some of those things might have to be submitted to some of our government departments we have here in Ireland. Have they been sent? We don't know. We have to manually go back through emails. Whereas there should be, we did have checklists, but paper. Where's the piece of paper?
Yeah. Whose desk on it? Who
Who's
grabbed it? Who
who's
moved
doing
it?
it?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's again, Scoop is looking after that for us. We don't have to wonder
Yeah.
anymore.
So with this setup, I can imagine as the company grew, as you're taking on more projects, you end up with dozen buckets here, different customers moving forward at different rates. Um, One thing I typically see then is almost, the squeaky wheel, the customer who's in front of you and pushing and calling to say, hey, I emailed that in yesterday, is getting the attention and moving forward at a faster pace than maybe customers who are a little quieter and just kind of trusting of, well, I've sent it in, so I imagine things are rolling on their side. I don't need to prompt NuSolas to tell them to move forward. So, when you think about this, can you tell me, did these delays maybe affect the relationship you were able to have with customers and that reputation you had with them?
Yes, it did because we, like you said, we might be waiting for a customer to send us something, and then we might email them, excuse me, to send us something that we need, and then they tell us, well, I already sent that. I sent it 2 weeks ago, and you haven't
Hmm.
acted on it. Um, and then you also have the customers who don't say a word, and they're trusting us to deal with it, and quite rightly so. We should be. Um, but there's also the customer then who will ring and they want everything done yesterday. They want things
Mm,
done ASAP, and it's very easy with no management system to say yes to appease the customer, and that's not necessarily the best thing because if we rush things without the, the proper preparation and the proper process, that'll cause a knock-on effect that will cause more issues down the line. So if a customer rings up, say, I want my installation tomorrow, we have a duty. They've paid us to take the care and preparation to make sure not only to get their installation done in the quickest manner possible, but in the best with the best quality. So if they say, well, I want my installation tomorrow, well, it is my duty to tell you we can't do it tomorrow because we haven't submitted this document because we haven't received this from you. And Scoop tells us this. Whereas before, you could be on a phone call with a customer and you're scratching your head. You've got things fractured, you've got spreadsheets, you've got Google Drive, you've got pieces of paper. And the worst thing to say is, I don't know. It's
mm,
terrible. It doesn't speak very professionally to say, I don't know. And you have to tell them, I'll have to find out and I'll have to come back to you. And then that's more time taken away from the process where if you have something in place, we have Scoop, the customer rings up, when can I get my installation? We are currently at this status and your installation will be in 2 weeks. And you can tell
got
them
it.
that
Yeah.
with a great degree of certainty.
Yeah. So you have those two things I kind of heard there. One is, when a customer calls with a general inquiry, able to speak very confidently to it, able
Yes.
to, drive the car. Before this, you kind of had and I'm sure we can all relate, you're on the phone trying to delay the conversation as you're opening up 4 or 5 different systems and
Yeah.
trying to get an idea. So you're able to now speak confidently, but also the other one is, as you kind of said, customers are going to push. Customers are going to say, let's go. I
Yep.
emailed you this.
Yep.
And when you kind of have this fragmented view, you're not sure. You kind of often take the customer's word that they say, oh, you guys asked me for something and I emailed it 2 weeks ago. They may be referencing a different document that's necessary, right? But you're now taking the customer's word for it because you're like, well, I don't see it here, but I don't have access to everything. Maybe it's sitting in someone's inbox. So sure, let's get that scheduled in. And only later are you finding out, wait, no, we've crossed our wires. That information hasn't been
Yep.
given to us yet.
Yeah. You tell a customer yes, and then you have to go back and tell them no.
Yeah.
Whereas you can just tell them no and say no because this.
Love it. Yeah, and that kind of is going to hope. How do referrals affect your business, right? And is it a bit of a close community? Are people sharing who they're working with, what vendors they're using? Do you get a lot of referrals to drive your new leads?
We do. A lot of it is based from because uh, for new business here in Ireland, we have we've a huge population in the urban areas, but Ireland being quite rural, there's a
Hmm.
lot of word of mouth. So the referral the way it works is that a you could have a neighbor who's 10 miles down the road. That's their closest neighbor. But my neighbor got solar from NuSolas and they had a fantastic process. I had no
Hmm.
problems with them. I got great communication. I got automatic communication through their system Scoop, which they do see. Other people want this because there are other
Hmm.
installers around who rely on a lot of phone calls. They rely on a lot of manually sent emails. And again, if you don't remember to send an email, that's not, you know, even though an installation might take place and there's no problem with this with the solar system that's been put in, but people want more than that. They don't want just the good system. They want the good service and they want a good after service as well. And then they can refer, ourselves to their neighbors, to their friends, and where we're located as well, there are quite big businesses as well, um, where employees tell each other. They mightn't necessarily live next to each other, but
Yeah.
they're telling everybody, New Solus, they're great to deal with. They've got a good process. It's
Yeah.
smooth. It's efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about this as a big investment for anyone making this purchase, as well as a very exciting, time, right? Like I've
Yeah.
gone in and put my deposit in, and I'm excited to move forward into the renewable energy and get a solar system installed. I imagine they're sitting at home every day, kind of thinking like, yeah, when is this happening, right?
Yes.
So as you said, even if someone's completing projects on the same timeline, that lack of communication is just kind of leaving customers a little bit anxious.
Yep.
Okay, so sounds like having a clear process and being able to proactively update these customers is making a big difference for you.
Yep.
Um, Not just for the customer's experience, but also your own team's confidence in managing those timelines and giving customers updates. So before you had this structure in place, what do you think were some of the core issues that were making it difficult? We've talked a little bit about the technology of, customer calls and you're looking around, but when you think about your process, um, what do you think was kind of at the core of it?
Core of the issues. Sorry, Remy.
Core of the issue. Yeah.
Um, I suppose we did get at the very when I first came on board, trying to excuse me, trying to bring in Scoop and at the same time manage the existing workflow. The recurring issue was always we don't get a lot of communication. We're not
Mm,
getting communication. And apart from getting a phone call to schedule an install, they're not getting any kind of regular updates of where their project is lying. Which, so yeah, they get a call from a sales representative and they've signed up and they've paid their deposit. And that was that. It was very quiet. It was almost like radio
mm,
silence all the way. They were ringing us looking for updates where the recurring issue was always, why are we having to contact you? Why are we having to ring you for an update? Why has it been so long? Whereas, and then the communication that we were trying to implement without using Scoop seemed a bit random. It was very,
mm,
oh, I've remembered I haven't rang this customer back in a week. Better ring them back. And that was that. And then you might try and say, right, I'm going to pick a particular customer and I'm going to make a particular effort, again, consciously, to communicate with them every couple of days or every week with an email or a phone call. But you can be consistent for a week, but then it falls off because you as a person have been taken away. You have to concentrate on other customers, and then that customer who did get a bit of consistent communication at the start, it's a very significant drop off. So they go from
mm.
You know, it's very noticeable. If you go from having phone calls and emails with fantastic communication to nothing, a sudden
Yeah,
change is very noticeable. And that's probably one of the key things is not being prompted when to communicate with people, and also not having something to do it for you, not having
got it.
something
Yeah.
automated, you know.
That kind of, cues it up. I totally get that feeling of, hey, last week I had a sales rep chasing me. They were calling me, they were emailing me, they were
Yep,
heavily invested. Money changes hands, and now you're kind of sitting there with crickets, being like, wait, now I'm calling the company. I'm reaching out to try to figure
yep,
out what's happening. And then as
exactly.
you've also kind of described, as the project's moving through the process, maybe early on you're like, I know that I need to be talking to customers and sharing with them. Now it's handed to a different team to go do something, and that team has a different approach or thought process around communication or different
Yep,
workload. And so the customer's kind of getting those like peaks and valleys as they're
yes,
going through.
yep, exactly.
Okay, absolutely. Um, One thing you mentioned to me a little earlier that caught my mind, you said you guys are doing this grant application process. Can
Yes.
you tell me a little bit more about that? What does that look like?
So the grant application process here, every domestic household in Ireland that was built before 2021 is entitled to a home energy upgrade grant, and that there are multiple grants there, and one in particular for solar PV, and also home electric vehicle charger.
Okay.
Um, from start to finish, the there are things that have to happen in that process. Number one, the customer has to register with the government for that grant, and that grant has to be registered for prior to the installation. Has
Okay.
to be done prior to installation. We also have to make sure that we have access through our portal to the customer to the government side where we can upload the documents afterwards.
Okay.
Now, part of that grant application, there is quite a long list of different documents and photos that the government need from the installer to show that everything was done according to regulations and done to standards. So part of the pre-installation phase of our projects is to double check to make sure the customer has registered for their grant and make sure that we have access to that. If they have not, that's a check for us to contact the customer. We cannot do your install until you do this. Otherwise, you can potentially lose out on a lot of money, a lot of
Hmm.
rebated money. For our installation phase, we have got sections divided up for our roofing team, and we have sections divided up for our electrical team. The roofing team have to document with photographs showing the panels that have been installed. They have to document the number of panels. Our electricians have to document the type of inverters, all these different things that we can then use to build additional documents afterwards.
Okay.
And then in the post installation, this is where we have all our checks for our grants that we got the electrical certification from our electricians? Have we got all the photos? And have we got everything that was supposed to be documented in the installation phase ready? We then have uh, particular sections in our post installation phase for each document with all the information that has been built from the very start of the process on Scoop that is then ready for us. Instead of going back through spreadsheets, instead of going back through Google Drive and all this, it's all on Scoop. We can open up our PDF editing tool. We have our templates. All the information is right there. We input that, download, upload the Scoop, because that is another check to make sure we've it done so we don't skip anything. And then at the very end, we can then upload everything to the government's through the government portal. The customer also gets an email through Scoop to say, we've that done now. Also, please see attached all your documents, and that is it. It's a smooth process from
Yeah.
start to finish, and it is the vast majority of our customers are getting grants, and they want their grants. They want them, and they want them
Yeah.
quickly. So
Yeah.
we,
I can
we
imagine.
so that the with the reduction of that, the reduced amount of workload in terms of trying to track down the documents afterwards because of Scoop now, it's quite a seamless operation.
But before, love it. Thank you for the detail. That's so helpful. I'm sure it's related to a lot of what our other customers experience, right? Grants are a massive part of this industry. Before this, what was the process? Would you open up the government portal to take a look at that list, and then, as you kind of said, just go start trying to hunt down the information?
Yes, we would have a piece of paper with the checklist, with the name of the customer written on the top, and with a pen and paper, we'd be ticking off each checkbox. And we'd have to keep going back into the Google Drive. Has that been done? Has that been done? Has that been done?
Hmm.
And all it takes is someone with a very quick hand, and I'll hold my hand up, I'm guilty of it myself, is ticking that box for the next part. Oh, that's done, but it's not. And that's the
So
only
what
check.
happens what happens when something was missed?
Then if you miss it, you're uploading all these documents to the government website. That website is not going to be too particular about the documents when you're uploading them. It just says, thank you very much. We're going to review that. It tells
Hmm.
they said the customer gets an email from the government saying, NuSolas has uploaded your documents. We're going to review that. The customer thinks, great, job is done.
Feeling pretty happy. Yeah, they're
Pretty,
gonna get their
pretty good,
cash.
pretty good up until, currently it's 1,800 euro for coming back from the government. Last year it was more. And in 3 weeks' time, when the government have reviewed it, they've said, "Oh, we don't have a document, we don't have a photo," and the customer gets an email saying, "Sorry, we're missing something." So now there's a bigger delay, and that's an unhappy customer because then we
Yeah,
have
I'm
to go
sure.
back.
Sure,
We
you're
have to go.
getting some phone calls at that point.
Yes, indeed, we are getting
Yeah.
phone calls and emails asked from customers. I just got this email from the government. What's going on? You told me that everything was done, and we're checking this piece of paper. And Kieran, who is filling this piece of paper, has checked off that this document is done or that photo has been submitted and it has not been done.
Okay.
And it's an
Yeah, and then another
embarrassment.
two, and then go track it down, send someone back to
Go
the
track
site
it
to maybe
down.
grab that photo.
Yes,
2, 3 more weeks in the government portal for review, and then fingers crossed,
that's it.
6 weeks to 2 months later,
Then they
customers
get
getting
paid.
their grant. Mm.
Yeah, then they're getting their money when it could have been done weeks before that.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Love it. Thank you. Now, absolutely understanding and being kind to ourselves that things can and do go wrong occasionally. With a central operations hub in place, how has that changed how you react to an issue? And just because we're switching, I'm going to switch over to a different slide. When something happens, when you notice maybe a new trend or a pattern of mistakes being made or a new requirement coming down the pipe, how has having a central operations hub helped you adapt?
Um, because Scoop is so dynamic and it's so adaptable to changes in our needs. Um, it, it- and it does happen. The government, particularly the government grant process, and even the electrical standards in the country, they do change. Um, and we also do have, over time, we will notice a few little things from customers saying, "Oh, I'm still not getting communications for something," or "I'm getting too much communications." Um, at least we know that from Scoop and from the setup, we can very quickly identify, well, where in the process should these things happen. Um, if something needs to be implemented, we can implement it very quickly, and we brief our teams on the ground. There's a change to Scoop. There's a change to the process. You're now going to have to take a new photo. You're now going to have to, you know, give us a little bit more detail because that's what's needed. And again, it is because we've such a good structure now in place. We know exactly where something needs to be done. We know where
Hmm.
implementation needs to be done. Um, we even only just this morning, I was handed an example of customers are getting an email regarding specifically to Huawei inverter products, and we have since branched out to other different brands of inverters. So that is now, it's totally not applicable. Every customer is getting this, and customers are saying, "Well, I didn't get Huawei." So
Hmm.
now that instead of wondering, well, when should I not? when should that be, addressed? When should that be sent? I know exactly what is triggering that email. I know exactly where it is, and I can change it very, very quickly. So it's, uh, I hope that answered the question,
Yeah,
of identifying the issues. It's because the structure is there. We can identify
yeah.
it very
Like once
quickly.
once it's all mapped out and
Yes.
flexible, you're able to, as you kind of said, like I'm not opening up and having to tinker around for hours trying to figure out what's going
Yeah.
on, or I don't have to go and put in place a new manual process to, a sticky
No.
note on my computer saying, if it's not Huawei, don't send an email. You say,
Yeah.
great, I can open it up, I can pinpoint exactly where it is, make a couple
Yes.
subtle changes to, bifurcate that email into two different ways depending on the inverter brand, and
Exactly.
then keep going. Okay.
Yes.
And I
Exactly.
love that it's like your team providing this information back up to you. Like
Yeah.
that's what we love to see is not you having to go hunt for the changes, but once the whole
No.
company is kind of embracing it and goes, I know how quickly things can change.
Yeah.
And any kind of 1% better experience that we can make by making a slight change, like pass it to Kieran, it's quickly adjusted and the company's always getting better.
Exactly. The just last week we made a change for our grant process for the documents, and we found it was very time consuming to go back through data sheets for particular panels.
Hmm.
Now that is we have implemented something that is uh, look, it's a workaround, but it has really sped up the process of generating those documents now. So
Yeah.
instead of taking 20 minutes now to do documents, it's taking us 5.
Love it.
So it's
Love
it
it.
it,
Okay.
it helps.
Okay. I'm conscious of the time. I'm loving this conversation so much. I realize we're doing the fireside portion quite lengthy here, and I know a lot of people tune into this to see the workflow, to see your account. So let me
Sure.
maybe stop sharing my screen here. I'll pass it over to you, Karen.
Sure.
Um, let's get in here and see how you have configured Scoop and built this out.
Okay. Let me find the right one. This is it. Okay, can you see that?
Give it one more. Perfect. Here it is. Maybe as a starting point, what was interesting to me is you mentioned before you even schedule or go for an install, you have a lot of requirements. You want to make sure you're communicating clearly to the customer, scheduling that in at the right timeline. You have to have all your ducks in a row to not schedule them in too early. Can
Yep.
you maybe show us a bit of this process?
Sure. So I'm going to use this particular project here as an example. As you can see here, we've got it's a 5-stage process for our residential project, and it goes
Hmm.
from the sale to the site survey to pre-installation to installation to post-installation. So the post sale deals with mainly the invoicing and the pricing. Um, it's quite a short process, but it basically looks after make sure deposit has been received. And
Okay.
once that's been received, then it kicks off the site survey. And the site survey is really where all the information, it's the biggest part of our Scoop process where all of our uh, the documentation that we need for preparation comes in, the details from the customer, where the system information is inputted. Everything
Hmm.
that we put in here has to be done, and it has to be done right so that there are no hiccups afterwards. Once this stage is complete, the rest is almost plain sailing. So at the like starting at the top, like I mean, we've got customer information, that's fine. Quotation information, that's fine. The system information gives us a really good idea of, you know, what the system size is. We need this information for post installation grant work.
Hmm.
Um, this feeds into also a materials list for our teams on the day, so they also
Okay.
know what to bring. Panel quantities, the type of inverter. They don't want to bring the wrong inverter, that's for sure. Um, Further down, then there is quite an important section. It's a solar PV assessment, which either the customer or ourselves can complete. And this gives us information that we need to give to our senior electricians here that they need to okay before we can even go on site. So
Got it.
we give this to our electrician to make sure, is the main distribution board, the fuse board, is it in good condition? Are the main meter cables in good condition? In this case, they are very good. And it is over to him as the professional, the electrician who is the most qualified person to say yes or no. And at this stage, again, we're not relying on a by chance coincidence that the electrician has seen these photos and we turn up on the day and we've got a nasty surprise where the electrician has then had to break the bad news to the customer
Mm,
on the day to say, sorry, I can't do this install because the regulations won't allow me. We are letting the customer know that your electrical infrastructure is in good condition and or not. You need to do this. And we're telling them this
extremely early on.
as early as possible. As soon as the customer gives us this information, within hours, within hours, we can tell them you're good to go or you're not.
Hmm.
And the customer appreciates that because in the meantime, we can be doing other things. Because
Yeah.
realistically, their install isn't going to be for another couple of weeks because we're so busy, and that's a good thing. And it gives them the time then to address these things. This is a new field which I've added. That's why it is blank. But again, another check for these things here, which are regulations for electrical installations here in Ireland. And it's
Hmm.
asking the simple question, do you have these? And the customer is going to give that feedback, yes or no. Um, Electricity bills, this gives us the correct information to fill in the permits. Every household in Ireland has to have a permit filled in and submitted. And this is where the electrician also signs off to approve the install. So as soon as we get this signature, we're good to go. Our electrician has given us the approval, and it will stay in this stage until the requirements are met.
So
Because
you're doing a pretty strong gatekeeping here.
yes,
After site survey, you're saying we're going on site, and then all the powers that be that have to approve this are coming in. They're double checking these, triple checking them to really make sure that so either inform the
yes,
customer, we need an earth rod or we need a panel upgrade. Do you want to do that? Do you want us to do that? Or
yes,
okay, yeah, we're getting the check boxes from the necessary people, and we're able to go forward. Which again, as you kind of mentioned, within hours of the site assessment, able to give that feedback to the customer as opposed to, yes, you're scheduled in 2 weeks, 2 days
yep,
before, hey, our guy was double checking things and noticed something's wrong. We're now pushing out the project, right?
exactly. So if there is with the workflow changes, we do have, you know, at different workflow stages, we have more options. So when it gets to this electrical review stage, the electrician has the option to change that workflow to an approved workflow
Hmm.
where we get a notification, I do, that your electrician has approved this, we can move on. There's an issue, and the electrician will put in notes into this as well. I recommend that you get such and such upgraded. I can then ring the customer with the professional feedback from our electrician. This isn't my opinion. This is our
Mm,
professional feedback from our electrician, who is the only one who is qualified to make this call. You need to get these things done. And it also does two things. One is the gatekeeper aspect to it, like you said, but it, not that we want to lose business, but it also gives the customer the opportunity now to tell us, I don't want to go ahead any further, because some of
mm,
these upgrades can be expensive. If our
yeah,
electrician says you need to have a full upgrade of your your meter, your earth rod, your fuse board,
yeah.
you could be talking thousands of euro, and that can, somebody's not going to be, they mightn't be keen on doing that, which is fine.
It
We won't.
gives them a chance to back out
It
before you
does.
guys go and commit more time and money
Exactly.
into pushing the
Exactly.
project along.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Ki-
that and
Kieran, I
there.
love.
Oh, sorry. Go on, Remy. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just I'm noticing on the screen. I absolutely love that all the completion bars, or most of them except for the electrical upgrades, are
Yeah.
all full. Um, and I noticed some fields are still blank. So
Yeah.
you're measuring your completion bar on mandatory fields, is that correct? Versus all
That's right.
fields?
Yes, so we don't, so any of these sections here, um, like invoice details, there are only optional fields inside here.
Hmm.
And the same as payment status optional. Some customers choose to pay their full balance upfront. So this is an option for us at any stage throughout our entire process, at any workflow stage, at any of our phases. If the customer rings us up and decides, I want to pay now, that's fine. At
Yeah.
least then at the very end, when we do look for the balance, this is then a mandatory section, and that is filled because it's using the same global field throughout the
Okay.
entire project.
Okay. So you're using the completion bar in a fantastic way, which is, hey, I can open up any project, any scoop, and see extremely accurately how much of it's being completed today.
Yep,
Um, you're putting that on the mandatory fields as opposed to all fields, which is a checkbox at the top of each workflow, so that you're able to see that, but you're also able to have this additional information that if it comes in early or if it's a nice to have, not a need to have, but it's not throwing off your completion bar where, you think the project's only half complete because there's a bunch of nice to have information that's missing.
exactly,
How
exactly.
did you go about building this? What was your thought process? What was the practice of kind of building this workflow?
Um, this workflow, in particular, just the site survey has evolved over the last 2 years, and that has come from, I suppose, what we were talking about earlier is where to identify where issues are. We used to do just this section here. I'll bring this to the attention is this NC6 registration. This is the permit with the utility provider here in Ireland
Hmm.
that allows um, the house to actually export to the grid and that they receive credit on their electricity bill.
Hmm.
We used to do this at a later stage in the pre-installation, but because the ESB actually take quite a long time to process this form, let's move it back a bit. And we then had this earlier in the process. So we said, well, let's just do the ESB NC6 at the very start. But we couldn't because we weren't getting electricity bills because we were asking for that using an
Yes.
automated email for the solar PV assessment. We were asking for it afterwards. So then we thought, well, let's do this as soon as we get as soon as we get all these photos from the customer, let's do the NC6 form. But then we thought, well, if we tell the customer that you have to get 2.5 grand worth of upgrades done, the customer's backing out. So we've gone away and spent time and energy, composing this document, signing it by our electrician and sending it when now it's now useless.
Yeah.
So this is now the sweet spot of where that belongs. And
Yeah.
this section only unlocks, it only is visible after the workflow for the electrical has been approved. And that's why it is there. And
I
that's
love it.
why,
Okay. Yeah, like
that's why it's at 100% because all the details for that are now filled. And we cannot go ahead because the very last thing is the signed document is mandatory and it is uploaded. And that is it.
yeah. I love it. I love that. Like I know some people may look at that and be like, wow, that seems like it took a lot of effort for you to find that sweet spot. But knowing that kind of like, you're trying to arrange the Lego blocks in the right order to get the most efficient process. And you're able to look and say, this ESB registration may take, 3 to 6 weeks. And if I wait
Yeah.
for everything to be ready before I do it, that's a potential delay.
Mhm.
Pull like now let's do it as early as possible. Oh wait, I'm missing the necessary information. And kind of just slowly adjusting it until by now it sounds like you found this real nice spot for it where you're like, it's at the point where the customer's committed to moving forward with the project. They're not going to back out. So we are willing to give it to our electrician and make and help and have them do the work to move forward. But it's as
Yep.
early as possible so we can start that clock while we're starting all the rest of our clocks elsewhere.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so cool. I'm aware of timing here. So just to kind of slowly start to wrap this up, Kieran, any advice for people, either current Scoop administrators or people thinking about getting into it? You've been in this role for 2 years. You've been using the system. Such a I'm going to call it a beautiful build. When I look at this, I see the completed bars. I see the sections properly broken out. I know there's a lot of conditional display rules here that kind of slowly unfold the project as you go. What advice would you give to someone watching this who goes, wow, I want to get my central operations hub into this state?
I suppose the thing I would probably say is teamwork, is to really, there's a lot more people here involved in NuSolas than me. You know, there's no point in me building this all by myself, because I didn't know what NC6s were. I didn't know what these things were beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
There there are so many people involved in all companies, where they all have their own needs and they all have their own responsibilities. So I would say that it's important to take things very nice and slowly, and really properly plan out your process with the team behind you, with the management, with the other administrators, with the sales teams, and even and with the guys on the ground, is to and to also encourage that afterwards, is to really communicate with all your team members. And if you are going to be looking after a scoop, is to keep repeating yourself to everybody in your team that if you do spot something that you think is an issue, do not be afraid to raise that. If you think that something is not in the right place, raise it with your manager or raise it with your scoop administrator, because it is easy to change. If you know
Mm,
what you're doing, and there's great supports from you guys in Scoop. I've had so much help over the last couple of years. I don't know how to do something, and it is something that to a lowly administrator like me might think, oh, this is impossible. Nothing is impossible. And it could be something very simple, and you guys will always give the answers. So communication is probably the best advice. Communicate with everybody. Keep up the
love
communication.
it. Love it. Kieron, thank you so much. Thank you for the advice. I think that, it's something we absolutely love to hear, and it's so helpful. Bring people in,
Yeah,
build that feedback loop, have everyone just communicating about how they're doing things, what could be improved.
yeah,
Um, I love it. Kieron, thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate it. I know we've got a lot of listeners on this webinar who are probably going to be taking away some of these real tips and tricks that you've given them. So thank you so much. For anyone who is attending, if anything you saw here is interesting or you want any help building it out, please don't hesitate to contact your customer success manager or myself. And for anyone who maybe is not a Scoop customer yet, but has joined in, just interested to see how a company like NuSolas has, streamlined those operations and used a central operations hub to grow, again, please reach out. We absolutely love to have these kind of conversations. So, Kieron, can't thank you enough. I know we're going to keep chatting because we chat frequently. So, thank you so much and have a fantastic day.
no problem at all, Remy. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Bye now.
Take care.